wellness revolution starts now.
Hello, I'm Dr. Steve Hotze. Welcome to the program. Today, it's my privilege and honor to have an opportunity to interview this lovely young lady, Kathryn Ritchie. I've known Kathryn and her husband, Nicholas, since back 2010 is when you first came in. Were you living in Dallas at the time?
Fort Lauderdale, I think, still maybe. Then we were in Dallas.
You moved to Dallas at some time, didn't you?
Yes. I guess around that time. Yeah.
But anyway, she's been a guest here at our center since 2010, and she has a most remarkable story. It is so touching. It brings tears to my eyes. And we're going to talk about her remarkable recovery and how she restored her health naturally and how it's changed her life and the life of her family. And then we want to talk later about her son and what a remarkable recovery he's had. So, Kathryn, tell us about your story. What happened and what led up to your being unhealthy and then eventually coming to see us here at the center?
Okay. Well, as a child, I was very active. I was a ballet dancer. I was just really healthy. And then when I was a teenager, my parents moved to Moscow, Russia. We worked in an orphanage there, caring for a group of orphans, just right in our family, and continued in good health there until October 2nd, 1999, when my sisters and I decided to actually go downtown to buy soap for our orphanage. And so we were across the street from the orphanage at a bus stop, just waiting for a bus. I remember looking down at my bus ticket, and that's the last thing I remember, because at that moment, a drunk driver, I was just driving down the road and drove off into the bus stop, hit us, and then continued down the road. My sister was killed instantly, and I went through a whole lot of physical issues. I almost died there. I was eventually air evacuated to Finland. I was in Finland. I broke both my legs and my jaw, and just had a lot of physical problems with bones and nerves and joints and all of that. But over the coming years, I was in a wheelchair for a year, crutches for a few years. Doctors focused on the bones, and they couldn't really figure out why I was just overall getting sicker and sicker. I was losing weight. I had no energy. I stopped having a period. I wasn't doing well at all, and the doctors didn't know what. So I went to Georgetown, Mayo Clinic. I went to all the famous doctors, and no one really knew what was wrong. And one of them finally at the end, they actually told my husband, Nicholas, well, maybe we should do some psychological counseling. Maybe she's not doing well because she hasn't worked through her trauma of the accident she was in. And I kept saying, no, psychologically, I'm fine. I'm not depressed. I'd had a good life. I'd worked for a congressman for a few years. I had been to seminary. I was working at a great church. I was very happy. But physically, I was just becoming sicker and sicker, to the point where after work, I would literally close our apartment door and be crawling around on the floor because it was just so hard to walk. And at that time, I just wanted to be a mom, like so many women do. And the doctors, even at Mayo, said, well, you're in menopause, in your 20s, pre-menopause. We don't really see that being a possibility for you. So we opened an adoption savings account, thinking that we would probably never have our own children.
Now, how many doctors had you seen across the world leading up to your coming here?
Yes, literally across the world. I went to several countries. I stopped counting at about 55. I remember one day on a plane thinking, this is not healthy, counting doctors. So I'm not quite sure, but it was over 50.
So it's amazing that you ended up here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Where were you living
Yes.
at the time were you all living here in Houston at the time?
Well, I think I was actually still in Fort Lauderdale. We hadn't quite moved to Dallas, and now we live in Houston. But my dad happened to see an ad on an airline magazine for y'all, and he said, "Oh, you really should go." And he told my husband, Nicholas, "You really need to take her." And I said, "Well, honestly, I didn't want to be told I was crazy again. I didn't want to walk in and fill out forms for another evaluation of me." And I kind of wasn't really interested. And I was speaking at a conference in Oklahoma a few months later, and I almost passed out. It turns out I had ovarian cysts rupturing. And I called my husband, and he said, "You are not flying back to Fort Lauderdale. You're flying to Houston, and you're going to go see this Dr. Hotze." So I just said, "Okay, I'll go there and I'll be told I'm crazy." And so that's like literally how I walked in the door, just dragging my feet, going to one more doctor that wasn't going to understand.
And what was your experience when you came in?
Totally different than any doctor I had ever been to before. The first thing I noticed is just how peaceful you are here, and how I didn't just feel like another number in a line. Like you actually cared about me and about my family, and you listened to me, and you didn't say I was crazy. And I started to hear that there's actually simple, in a sense, answer to so many of my issues that had never been addressed to me before. And do you want me to share about that? Or?
Sure, go ahead.
It turns out that really it was just my hormones that had been unbalanced from all the trauma and the different things I had been through. And I needed thyroid and I needed progesterone. The doctors actually at other places had been giving me backwards. Like the reason I was having so many ovarian cysts is they just kept pouring estrogen in me, thinking that was going to help me. My cortisol levels needed help. And as they gave me these different things, and then I'll never forget, the doctor said, "I don't see why you couldn't become pregnant." And I thought, but I haven't had a period for a year. Like that's impossible. So I just kept that hope, I was a little afraid to hope that. But my husband heard that and started thinking maybe we won't need that adoption account. And it was St. Patrick's Day, a few months later, that I found out I was pregnant, and I was so shocked. I gave the pregnancy test to my husband, and I just started to cry. I just stuffed it in his chest, and he said he had no idea what those little lines meant, but if I was crying, he thought that probably meant something. So that, yes, I was pregnant with my first. Nikki.
And Nikki was born when?
He was born November 2011.
2011. And that was such an amazing story that year. We had our guests go on using their iPhones and post their success stories. And then we posted them online, and we had people vote online who had the most remarkable story. And the winner of the story, we were going to give a reward to go to the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. All expenses paid, I think 3 nights, 4 days at the beautiful Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. So when all was said and done and all the votes were counted, Kathryn and her husband Nicholas's story was the most remarkable, and it won the contest. And so you got to go.
Yes.
So now tell us what happened. You were not feeling quite up to snuff when you got there.
Well, I had been so excited about the Broadmoor. Just what an honor, of course, to be able to go. But because when we had gone on our honeymoon, I had just been so ill from all of these issues. I had always felt bad, like we never really had a nice honeymoon, because I was literally just sick in bed, so much of it. And so it was like an opportunity to have a honeymoon again a few years later. But this time I was also starting to feel sick and nauseated. And so we got a pregnancy test while I was there, and I was pregnant with Elizabeth, our second.
So winning the contest led to her having another child. Yeah. So Kathryn, and remember, she was told by the doctors at Mayo Clinic and other doctors around the country that you would never, ever have children. And when she came here, we said, well, don't blame us if after you get on our treatment program, you get pregnant. Don't blame us. And she went, what? And I said, don't blame us. It's not, this is something that it's not uncommon for us to see. We we do fertility here. We don't do infertility. We do fertility. And so we have helped numerous women who have had problems with their menstrual cycles and inability to get pregnant. We've helped them through the use of thyroid and the female hormones. And that's why I tell them all, if they're having problems getting pregnant, don't blame us if you get pregnant on our program. Who should they blame? Well, you talk to your husband about that. It's not our fault. So anyway, so that she had number 2. And then we find out you had number 3. And who was that?
Edmund.
Edmund was number 3, and he was born when?
He was born 2015.
2015. So you had your 3rd baby after you were told you couldn't have any more children, could never have children. She was told by doctors at the so-called finest medical centers in the country. What did they know? How could we be smarter than they are? Because we do natural approaches to health, and we know how the body works, and we can get at the underlying cause of the problem rather than treating the symptoms. And then, lo and behold, you had number 4. And who was that?
Claire.
Claire. Now, when was Claire born?
2016.
Now, that's remarkable. Here, the doctors told her she couldn't have any children at all, never would, and she had 4 children, Claire. Mm-hmm. And then we heard a year or 2 later.
Right. Bronwyn showed up. She's number 5.
You know, what's her name?
Bronwyn.
Mm-hmm. So 5 kids. It's incredible. And then we heard
George arrived. That's right, number 6.
6 kids. And she was told she'd never have any children. Mm-hmm. She turned to be, she and old Nicholas, a productive family. And then I just found out today.
Number 7 is due April 30.
This, my friends, is a remarkable story. And they're godly Christian parents, and they're raising some godly Christian kids. Are you homeschooling your kids?
Yes.
And she homeschooled the kids. This woman, Kathryn Ritchie, has led. It's remarkable. And I thank God for your testimony. I know you love him and trusted him.
Everything that you've done for us.
Hey, we're simply an instrument. He's a great physician. Yes. It's a wonderful story. So if any of you all out in the listening audience want to get your lives back, get on a path of health and wellness, you can have an experience like Kathryn has. First, she trusts God. I know if she saw 50 doctors, she went to God every day in prayer, begging God to give her children. And he answered abundantly.
He did.
7 kids. Great story. Thank you, Kathryn, for sharing this with us.
Well, thank you.
And if any of you want to get on a path of health and wellness, or any of you young women are trying to get pregnant and unable to get pregnant, then we'd love to have the opportunity to partner with you to help you get on a path of health and wellness so you can have a family. Thank you for joining us, and thank you again, Kathryn.
Thank you.
At Physicians Preference Pharmacy, we understand that the quality of your compounded medications directly affects the way you feel, which is why we believe that your pharmacy should specialize in compounding medications while also delivering extraordinary hospitality and guest service. We believe that both patients and prescribers should accept nothing less than consistency and quality from their compounding pharmacy. This is why we've implemented some of the strictest quality standards in compounding, exceeding standard requirements, achieving PCAB accreditation, which is the Pharmacy Compounding Accreditation Board, an organization that sets the highest standards in compounding pharmacy regarding the safety, cleanliness, and quality of your compounded prescriptions. Because of our commitment to complete health and wellness, we are dedicated to making your medications free of lactose, parabens, artificial sweeteners, and any unnecessary dyes, binders, or fillers present in many other medications, offering you the cleanest products possible.
information provided on this program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this program is at the listener's discretion.